Okay, because I think I had the wrong microphone configured last time. That video had very poor audio, so I think I should just go ahead and redo this video. Very briefly go over the comments. I won't go through the paper line by line, but I'll go through the comments and explain them best. So we'll just start up here. The line spacing, be sure line spacing is set at 0. That's up here. This is an older version of Word actually, so you click here. Basically it's this, find this, usually it's up here. Click on line spacing and find out. Be sure this is set at 0 before and after, and then double spacing. If you have this as automatic or as any other number, it's going to add extra space between your paragraphs, which for online viewing I think is what it's configured for and is the default of the new Word version. But for textual production, MLA and APA format, you do want 0 spacing between your lines. That's a little thing, as I said in class. So like I said, I already set that, and I guess I don't know why that's so the heading, everything is fine. Then I think we looked at the works cited sources in class, so if we just want to quickly look at those, again, the assignment asks for 3 secondary sources, academic, hopefully, sources on the topic. Wendy does have 3 academic sources, properly formatted if you take the line, if you correct the line spacing, alphabetical order. The works cited title is not italicized, not bolded, not underlined, anything, just plain centered. Spacing is consistent throughout. These are alphabetical, I think I said that. And these sources are all excellent academic secondary sources. The only one correction is in MLA format. In multiple authors, this should be first name, last name on the second and third and subsequent authors. Like spelling and our mistake in the higher, it should be higher education, I think. And as I mentioned in class, and I corrected it up here, if you do indicate this is a web source, you do need to indicate the source, the database, or sponsoring website here. Since you have PDFs, and I think these are all PDFs, you can just substitute print and call it good. I think that's good enough. So anyway, excellent sources informing the paper. Go back up to the title in the beginning. As I mentioned in the comments, you need something about the solution as a subtitle in here. This is the topic of the paper. It's even narrowed down to student apathy in higher education, but since this is a proposal, you need a solution, you need some sort of maybe a colon here, and then a solution, an epistemological solution, as we know about the topic of the paper itself. Something needs to be there. And then as we looked at the first line, this is a kind of a dramatic line. Will never fully shape themselves into creative individuals, but at least for me as a reader, I felt dropped in. I'm not sure why you're telling me this. I'm not sure what it means. It's a convention to start off with the conversation according to, or since Mark Edmondson's fairly well known. In Mark Edmondson's essay, he talks about student apathy, and then you can get into your bit. So what's the context? How do we get? Why are you telling me this? You read an article by Ed Edmondson. Now you don't want to say you read an article by Edmondson. You want to just say, Mark Edmondson in his essay argues this, and then get into that. And then, as I said in class, I'm not sure what case. In this case, what case? I don't know. And a higher education doesn't make much sense. It's higher education. We talked about contractions in formal writing. Talked about what sounded to me almost like cliches, walking through the motion, dig deeper. Again, what does dig deeper really mean? It's a kind of a metaphor, more cliche. Again, I was going through in class just my reader response to this. Academic appearance at the university, I don't know what that means. There's a verb problem, as we talked about. To excel, you don't excel something, you don't excel students unless you're talking about surpassing them. Maybe you try to get your students to excel, but generally the verb to excel doesn't take an object. So teacher's responsibility is to help students, to improve students, something. And then if you read the rest of the paper throughout, it actually here, there's a better thesis down at the bottom of the paragraph, as we talked in class. Writing to learn. By the time you finish writing the essay, you have discovered your real point. So here, professors and their teaching methods are a major factor in student apathy. That's a really good, strong statement. Now put it, as I said, you finally found your point. Now put this at the beginning and revise accordingly. That's your real focus, I think, if you choose to do that. Now, this is what we talked about in class. This is the biggest problem with this draft. It's a very good draft, but the biggest problem with it doesn't have a problem section. You sort of assume that we are going to agree that student apathy is a problem. I haven't been convinced of that yet. Maybe my prior knowledge does that, but I think you still need to explore that. So you jump from the introduction to your solution, basically, which is to manipulate the epistemological beliefs. But there needs to be a paragraph or 2 paragraphs or however long it takes to convince your reader that student apathy is a problem, or student apathy and teaching methods, if that's what your real topic is. So you need to convince me that there's a problem before starting this. Again, just as my reader response was going from big things to little things, manipulating. If you're talking about teaching methods, I really don't like, or I don't think people really look at teaching as manipulation. It's a very negative connotation, so just word choice there. And then, as several people in class talked about, epistemological, what is that? What does that mean? It runs throughout the essay, so I think it's very important to define that for the reader, define it for the author's benefit. Make sure you know what that means. So somewhere in there. And then we talked about again, influencing the article or formatting the article according to Denise Tolhurst. It's actually a her, I think, but just punctuation wise, this title is necessary to understand which article. We assume she has written more than one. So if something is bracketed by commas, that means it's not necessary for understanding, and it can be left out. In this case, I think it's necessary, so you would not have the comma, and you have an introductory phrase according to this comma. It is important. Here's your sentence, and then the summary. And since you do introduce Tolhurst up here, you do not need it here. You don't need the last name, but otherwise this is perfect format. With last name and page number without anything in between, and then the period at the end. Again, in class we talked about this section. Not quite sure if that's Tolhurst or the author. Who's saying this? Using a marker like in other words, which would mean you're explaining it, or using a marker like Tolhurst continues just to show or something in these sentences. You always got to make sure the reader knows when you're talking and when you're not, when your source is. Usually present tense. Some of this is direct quotes. It needs to be marked as such, as I said. And then the biggest problem with this particular paragraph is you have this thing about epistemology, and then you jump down to another solution as verbal praise. This is a very weak transition. It's basically, here's another something else, but that doesn't really fit with the paragraph, particularly if the paragraph is, manipulating it or something to do with epistemological beliefs, ideas, relationships to knowledge. So I think this, either decide what you want to talk about. Maybe you don't need both. Maybe instead you need another paragraph, something like that. Again. This is redundant. According to Dawson's study in his article, whether according to Dawson Hancock in his article, which would be in commas, post-secondary students do this, or according to Dawson Hancock, you can leave all this out, post-secondary students and so on. So this is just redundant there. Again, a matter of, does your reader know what you're talking about here? And since you introduce include the name in the source, in the lead-in, you don't need in the parenthetical citation. And again, is this you? Is this the source? We don't know. Positive outcome gives rise to creativity. Again, if this is you, I really want to see, how do you know this? How do you know this will change dramatically and such? How will students learn and so on? You're getting it from the sources or not. Using the second source, Paulson and Feldman, on first reference you should always include the full name, so first name, last name, and then later on you can use the second and last name. Again, looking at quotations, this is it's a phrase that stands out to me as not the writer's. So this is actually a direct quote, and you may need to indicate what is quoting. Again, indicate where you are and where your source is. Cliche. Again, the parts of the essay, except for the establishing the problem, are there. We've got a sort of a solution, although I think exactly what those teaching methods are, I think, needs to be outlined. But you have the beginnings of the solution, you have feasibility and counter arguments and so on. Like I said, I don't know what learning processes is. If you're telling me the learning process is more time consuming, I still don't know what that is. And again, what level of interpretation? I think that's the epistemology. Spelling, again, it's Denise. Maybe that's where you get the confusion of the pronouns. And again, maybe this is real focus. Sometimes in papers it leads you to a way that maybe you're not expecting, but maybe you want to go there. You can still focus on student apathy as a problem, relate it to teaching methods, and your solution is to change teaching methods. Would be good. You might change your research a little bit. And like I said, this seems to be, because it's in conclusion, and as I said in class, this is very common to see, but you need to take the next step and shift this up to the beginning and revise. Alright, well, that's, again, as quick as I can, and this video is only lets me do 15 minutes anyway, so I apologize for talking really fast, but hopefully you can hear me on this video. And again, if you have any questions, just email me and whatnot.